Want to stop juggling spreadsheets, calendars, and a dozen apps just to run your rentals? Lodgify makes it easy. It's an all-in-one toolkit for hosts. Build a direct booking website, automate guest messaging, and keep all your channels in sync. Running your rental business your way has never been simpler. And for Good Morning Hospitality listeners, you can get 20% off any yearly plan with code GMH20. Just check the link in the show notes to get started today.
Welcome to Good Morning Outdoors, your one-stop shop for the latest news, noteworthy trends, and thought-provoking discussions across the outdoor hospitality industry. From campgrounds and RV parks to glamping, outdoor resorts, adventure travel, and ecotourism, we'll be discussing all things outdoor travel and hospitality, so join us on Good Morning Outdoors every Thursday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Good morning. Happy Thursday. Matt, I think you're a little muted here.
Good morning, Alex. How we doing?
Doing great. Enjoying the nice weather, a nice, beautiful start to early May.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a few solid days of going on my walk in shorts and a t-shirt, which in
Is
upstate
rare.
New York, that's saying something.
Right. I was going to say the only thing now is like I think I can officially say we're out of kind of snow territory. Although watch, now that I said
You jinxed
it'll
us.
be having it in a couple of days here. But it's the rain, right? It's always a little bit of a rainy kind of start to the camping season. A lot of park owners have even kind of begun to switch from more of a later start to kind of a later finish and going a little bit longer in the fall because it's been so hot. I know you've been out and made a little bit of a purchase here to kind of take advantage of the outdoors. You just want to tell folks about that before we dive into all the news today?
Yes. So a couple fun things actually. Purchased a rooftop truck tent. So I'm putting some racks on my truck and purchased an iCamper.
Yeah, those are sick.
Camp 3.0. It's it went back and forth. Should I buy an RV? Should I build a little cabin on wheels? Like I have an extra tiny home trailer. I've been thinking about building something on, but convenience and I want to experience the outdoors. So shout out iCamper. Hit us up if you want to sponsor the show. They've been recommended a few times, so it's pretty cool. It takes like 60 seconds to pop up. It's a king size bed on the inside, so we'll give it a try with my wife and kid and bring it down to Covered Bridge, and it ties in with the other kind of fun project I've jumped into recently, which is shout out to Cut 30. It's a short form video boot camp and cohort. Followed a couple of those guys on social media for a while and have seen some great results out of that. I'm a Twitter guy, X guy, LinkedIn, business to business content writer. I've always looked at short form video as like kind of a daunting thing, right? You gotta script, you gotta come up with the ideas, you gotta script it, you gotta record it, you gotta edit it, you gotta post it, and then it flops, and then you gotta do it 100 more times to figure it out. It's a lot easier to just write a crappy tweet in like 2 minutes, and but it's fun. We have homework assignments and focusing on it for the campground business to start. So it's a little different angle, obviously more business to consumer type marketing and social media. So Alex, obviously you're the marketing brain. You have to give me some feedback on the stuff that I come up with.
And I was going to say, you're kind of getting into like becoming one of those RV truck camper influencers. Like you're going to be one of those people that I'm sure most of us are accustomed to.
Yeah, I'm gonna get one of those like Insta360 cameras or whatever. I see all the influencers messing around with on Instagram, and do some cool truck camper campsite content. So that's why I said it's kind of tied in, right? that's something that we're lacking at Covered Bridge is good visual assets. We have some good nature photography, but we're lacking video, right? So then it's like, that's the big daunting thing is like, oh, great, I'm going to learn how to post all these short form videos, but like, I need the content library first. So learning a little bit about it, spent probably my whole day yesterday, making a 30-second video. So
it'll get faster for sure.
Off to a hot start. But yeah, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, and that's great. It's obviously, always amazing to share the experience with people, right? And I think that, a lot of our stories today tie into that with great experiences and videos. Like it's one of the best ways where you can actually get people to understand what you're trying to do. And it's a lot more impactful than, as you said, writing a tweet or making something in written format or even going on the website. So I love the focus on video and experiences in particular.
Yeah, man.
All right. Well, before we dive into some great news stories today, let us know where you're tuning in from. I know I say this every week and want to hear, kind of where everybody either has a vacation planned, where you go in, what part of the country. If there's an RV park or campground you want to shout out, would love to be able to plug them as well. A great place where people should visit, or just let us know, how is the weather like in your neck of the woods and where are you tuning in from on the show today. So with that, Matt, let's dive into our first story, really talking about the Wilds, which is a really cool property in kind of a safari park and campground kind of mix all together. Speaking of a great experience, what a heck of an experience here in the Midwest to, really see that. Do you just want to tell folks about a little bit about the grand opening of this property in Central Ohio and what they're trying to do?
Yeah, so you started off great there. It's a super experiential property. I'm pretty sure it's a Is it a nonprofit? I think it might be a nonprofit.
Yeah, it might be. I think it's a very similar kind of status or classification to like a zoo, right? Where there's definitely a conservation and a mission involved there. They're trying to protect endangered species and also create great experiences for people to interact with them up close that you may not get to otherwise.
Right. Yeah, my first reaction here was, and I haven't, until this story came out, I haven't really looked super close at the Wilds other than listening to a few podcasts. Mm-hmm. I had kind of a wrong understanding of what they are. I wasn't totally off, but I identified kind of more with their glamping type offerings, their lodging offerings, because they've been on like the Unique Hospitality podcast and stuff like that, talking about, yurts and different lodging options. So, I thought it was interesting, and it makes sense, right? That they probably have a pretty diverse draw to the zoo and safari kind of element to it. And I don't think their lodging offerings are too expensive, but something that was an interesting kind of juxtaposition as to what we see in the market is that people enter the outdoor hospitality business and then go up market. Mm-hmm. I thought this was interesting because they're going in some ways down market. That was what
they already have the unique, cool, close up stay, and now they're adding RV sites and primitive tent camping.
Right, exactly. So it sounds like it's going to be a really cool property. It's a lot of acreage and not a ton of sites. So I think it plays into, obviously the nature side of things. They already have some really cool amenities there that they can take advantage of, obviously. So it makes a ton of sense. I think it'll be a big hit, like I said, because, there's probably a bunch of RVers that go there, great for kids, great for families. I'm sure there's plenty of customers that go there every year or every couple of years. And, I'm sure there's people that have requested, hey, like, can I park my RV here in the parking lot? I'm sure that happens already. So makes a ton of sense. Encouraging to see.
Yeah, and I love the marketing language they use around, even on the RV side, talking about it being still a unique and immersive stay. So wondering, like, as you described, Matt, with that much acreage, they're going to have hiking trails and biking trails. And I wonder if even, some parts of the property having the animals so close, right? Where you can wake up out of your RV and have that great view of what's happening in the morning, and vice versa with the tent, and same thing. So if they can really keep that immersive experience and sort of bring it down to where they accomplish both the glamping, the RVing, and the tent camping, I think it'll be a really nice addition to the property. Obviously, getting that additional acreage is great for the whole sort of conservation lands that they have, and the entire campus that they have built there. So I think if they, even in RV and tent camping, keep immersive experiences as the focus, that will really continue to drive the customer experience and the stay moving forward. So love that they've really focused on that. And if they just continue to make that a heart of their mission and use that to drive their conservation efforts, then I think this is a huge win, not only for Central Ohio, but just for different parks and concepts that want to bring that experience to the RV consumer.
Yeah. And May 30th. So
yeah,
anybody
right.
in the Midwest, a couple more weeks here, or planning to be there, or, big on this kind of thing, look out for that to be open in May 30th and hook up the rig and get out there.
Absolutely. Our next bit of news is also a little bit of expansion, but obviously this time we're talking about an entire system in the camping industry. One of only a couple of camping franchises, one that I know particularly quite well, spent the first part of my career at a location connected to this franchise. Jellystone Park put out there, they have become accustomed to this sort of being an annual announcement, talking about expansion plans and what's happening just in the franchise system, generally speaking. They've got some really great parks with expansion in the United States and Canada. And Matt, I'll let you kind of give a little bit of background on Jellystone for people who aren't familiar. We've talked about their parent company, Sun Outdoors, and that kind of acquisition was a couple of years old now, but how they connect to Jellystone, what they bring to the table. But I'll highlight a couple of pieces of expansion news and let you kind of go in to highlight some of the players and people at the Jellystone franchise. New locations, really what I saw is a focus on existing partners, right? People who already had locations in the Jellystone system, wanting to add even more locations to their roster. So we talk about Sean Vidrin at 4 Points RV Resorts. They acquired Le Bleu Lakes RV Resort in Lake Charles that they are transforming and rebranding to become a Louisiana Jellystone location, which is interesting because Jellystone did have the one and only location in Louisiana leave the system, and this is a nice replacement for those customers in that market to not lose Louisiana as a place in the market there. And then Watts Bar Lake, Tennessee, Kelly Jones and the team over at Great Escapes RV Resorts, they have been developing this park for several years. This is an incredible property on Watts Bar Lake, which is a great location. They took a piece of land, have built this place from scratch, and are just getting ready to open it. It's got all the bells and whistles you would expect of a Jellystone, full resort property, swim up bars and water park and great cabins and anything and everything you can expect. They really had a great concept for this property and have begun to really transform it. And then they've got a new location coming in Canada as well from the Maritime Fun Group, which owns, I believe it's 2 or 3 other locations in Canada as well. So they've kind of been dubbed the, Canadian Jellystone franchise, but that's where the expansion news is really being driven from. These are all existing partners in Maritime, 4 Points, and then Great Escapes that have had parks in the system for a number of years and are just bolstering and adding new locations to the portfolio. So Matt, I'll open this up to you, for you to give some comments on the expansion news and to tell folks a little bit more about Jellystone.
Yeah, I love kind of monitoring Jellystone, such an iconic brand and franchise, sort of, old school family resort style camping. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean that in a very positive way. And that's kind of what our industry is. And that's how I think about it, is like, it's such a digital, AI world today with human connection, I think, is suffering. So like brands like Jellystone, like KOA, it's just super interesting to see how they adapt to serve the modern customer, but also stick to the fundamentals and the classic camping, fun, family getaway where you give people an opportunity to escape that. So I think it's, we're seeing how a large iconic franchise is striking that balance. Something quickly of note, good to see that competition is alive and well. That the one in Canada and Cavendish is KOA switching to a Jellystone. So, I think there's some healthy competition there. Definitely different products for sure, right? Like Jellystone is super amenitized. You see a lot of water parks and water slides, and not that you don't find that at KOAs, but that's typically KOA resorts, and that's
right.
more
And
rare.
I would add as well, KOA's got the kind of tiered systems, right? If you know
Exactly.
of a KOA holiday or what have you, they kind of brand the parks not only for the customer but for you as a franchisee to sort of look at how you want to develop your park. The
Yep.
same cannot be really said on the Jellystone level. There's obviously a level of franchise standards that exist and things that every Jellystone park has. But to your point, Matt, every location, even all three of these that are being developed, you could go into each one of them and the experience would be completely different.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And, it's worth noting that Jellystone, I wouldn't call them a small operation because it's 80 or so, right? Pretty large parks and large operations. These all have large staff, typically food and beverage, to a pretty significant degree, tons of amenities, tons of, facilities to maintain. These aren't rustic campgrounds,
right?
or basic
The
RV
average
parks.
Jellystone made about $2.9 million in 2022.
That's incredible. Yeah.
Was the average.
Right. Yep. And so, fewer in number than KOA, but you look at KOA's numbers and it's a stark difference. There's some very basic KOAs out there that, KOA journeys that function as overnight parks. So, on one hand you say, oh, three new Jellystones coming online. It's not a huge number, but it's not insignificant either. Where really the big moving and shaking, and I think this speaks to what's going on in the industry. We've sort of indirectly touched on it in prior weeks, talking about Sun Outdoors in ELS, how new park acquisitions and new park growth is kind of gone to zero. But that doesn't mean that there's not expansion going on, and we see that here with a pretty extensive list of parks that are making significant additions of 25 new sites, 75 new sites, new water park, 200 new RV sites in Bremen, Georgia, 71 new cabins, 10 new covered wagons. So it's not that expansion is not happening. It certainly is. But I think a lot of people in our industry are looking at their current operations, figuring out how to maximize what is already in the portfolio. I think
right.
that's a really good.
If you look and say, I don't really see anything else in the market that's going to get me the type of increase in revenue or improvement in operation that I can get in house, and you look at, well, I've got dollars, like where do I deploy them and how do I spend them? I think that's the decision a lot of people are being forced to make and look at, do I just put them back into expansion into my current property, or do I look at the market and see what I can get? And I think the resounding answer has been, both in Jellystone and in the camping and outdoor hospitality industry at large, has been, for the most part, people have improved their operation and said, I'm just going to take the money and begin to make my properties even better and wait for market conditions to change to purchase additional locations.
Right. And that's a hallmark and kind of a focus. You talk to people that are investors in the space, right? They're a big piece of the criteria for what makes a good investment is value add, expansion potential. And I think a lot of times people just say that. It sounds good. It's a good story for investors and for lenders. But it's good to see it actually in action. It's no small feat, right? Adding 200 new sites to an RV park is effectively just building a new park, right? That there's tons of infrastructure, there's tons of permitting, probably some, site plan review type work, right? Like it's not easy to build an RV park. It's not easy to get your neighbors to approve certain things like that. Even if you have a clear runway with the right zoning, you're in a area that doesn't put up a lot of red tape. Permitting process is easy, entitlements are easy. Your neighbors can still blow it up for you. So it's a lot of hard work. I think it's easy to kind of dismiss this as not much in the way of news, but I see it as encouraging and kind of a counter argument to even some of the stuff that I say, as of recently, that the market is slowed. There's not much acquisition volume going on, what have you, but it's a good signal for growth for sure.
Absolutely. And speaking of another location in the works and developments, we've got a big name that Matt, I honestly never thought we would be talking about a name like Amazon on our show, particularly talking about them building or helping construct a new RV park location. So this story came out this week, really in the Oregon market, talking about Amazon putting up the funds for an RV park gift, they're coining it, but really this is meant to help Amazon. There's always a hidden motivation or some strings attached with things like this. But they are putting up, I think it's close to $8 million to help construct this RV park at an event center. And really Amazon is looking at this and saying, we have a data center we want to help construct and we need to get constructed. There's not a lot of lodging or available places for workers and contractors and people coming in to stay. How about we partner with you, the city? We'll take a location you already have at this event center. We'll put up the money and sort of get first rights of the first 100 sites to use for our workers and our workforce while we build out this data center. And then when it's done, you guys have a little basic RV park. Now, to note, this is not a separate RV park location. This is being built, on kind of a city property at an event center. So this is not kind of a standalone type property, but I think it's really interesting to see really workforce needs in a company like Amazon, particularly saying, yeah, we recognize the need in this so much that we're willing to put up this kind of cash just for our workforce and only for a short period of time. You wouldn't estimate that this data center construction would take more than a couple of years, probably at most. Yeah. So Matt, how do you see the situation? And is it interesting that we see somebody like Amazon potentially getting into the RV park space, particularly for workforce housing needs?
Yeah, my first reaction was $8 million is a lot of money for 100 spaces. It's $80,000 per space. That should, we don't have the information. Is all of that $8 million going to the RV park? How many sites overall is being planned? We don't have that information either. It just says, priority access to rent 100 of the spaces for Amazon. I mean, it's a no-brainer for them, right? It's a line item on the construction for the data center that's probably in the hundreds of millions of dollars. They got to get the project done. It's a small town of 20,000 people where there's not a lot of housing available, I assume. I'm hopeful that, given the area, it does seem like an area that has pretty good access to outdoor recreation. It's close to the Columbia River. It's a couple hours from Mount Hood. There's a national refuge area 15 minutes away that looks pretty cool. So I'm hopeful that once this data center gets built, that this RV park doesn't just empty out. That's always my concern when I see these, you see a lot of RV parks come up for sale and the pitch is, oh, there's the power plant going in down the street and, it's going to be full of transient construction workers and it's going to be a cash cow for the next 5 years as this project goes on. And it's like, well, what happens after that 5 years?
Right. It's a little bit of an artificial market, right? Amazon is coming in and basically
Yeah.
making the market for this RV park. But you would imagine that just capitalist principles, like an RV park would already exist if there was a need for the RV consumer in this part of Oregon, right? Somebody would have thought of the idea because there would have been the demand there that existed already. And somebody would have said, hey, let's build one.
Yeah. I looked at the aerial of, the convention center there. It's going to be next to a convention center. So I think there's demand there. It's the immediate area looks like it's mostly agricultural. But it's just a few minutes outside of a town of 20,000 ish. Like I said, it's accessible to some pretty awesome outdoor recreation opportunities. So I'm encouraged that it's not just going to be workforce housing for the rest of its life. That it'll one day, and hopefully if it's more than 100 sites, it'll provide some good access to outdoor recreation and provide good support for some local fishing guides on the Columbia River. And
I mean, it's Oregon, right? Oregon's beautiful wherever you go. So
yeah.
it should be great.
Yeah.
And then rounding out our kind of, I would say, acquisition or new location development news, we've got another kind of interesting story and two interesting kind of parties merging together. This story came out in RV Business this week, talking about Showalter RV opening up an RV resort in Indiana. So I obviously have lived in Elkhart for a period of time and know some folks in the traditional RV manufacturing side of the business. This is really interesting to me for a number of reasons. I've really not seen an RV kind of manufacturer or dealership owner really say, I'm going to kind of take both sides of this and not only sell the RV, but sell, the location and the spots for people to stay at. This dealer started in rentals, eventually moved to kind of motorhome sales, and then now is looking at building this new RV resort in kind of the Syracuse, Indiana location. So still fairly close to, Elkhart, Indiana, the RV capital of the world, and where, 99% of all RVs are made. But I just think this is really interesting. It's kind of marketed to be an upscale kind of RV resort. You can kind of see from the kind of rendering here. I don't know if this is of the, I guess this is the office rendering. I was going to say, I don't know that we've seen really the rendering of what the actual resort is going to look like. Or I know there's, as you read through the article, there's great talks of what the amenities are going to be added with, swimming pools and great full hookup, long RV sites to accommodate kind of the larger and larger units that are being produced in the market. But talk about, again, another story with two interesting parties. This is just a really unique one where you see an RV dealer move into the RV resort space. And obviously we've kind of seen that a little bit through, Thor's investment in a place like Open Road Resorts, but I don't know that we've really seen an RV dealer or manufacturer take on the ownership directly, where it appears as though there's no intention to kind of, move this to a third-party management agreement or kind of outsource this. It appears as though on the surface that they're looking to really run the property as well. So that I think would be really interesting. Matt, how do you kind of see this, and what really struck you as interesting in the story?
Yeah. So having talked to some people from that area that actually work, in different areas of kind of the RV production line, I've heard some pretty strong commentary, and it's a little bit ironic that Elkhart being, kind of the RV mecca, there really aren't that many great RV resort options there.
No, there's about 3 or 4,
right?
And they're not that big,
like super high end. Yeah,
no.
So filling a slot in the market for sure. And I think it's an interesting sales tool for an RV dealer, right? Maybe they'll
even you think about repairs and service, right? To put you up while you wait and bring it back to the factory to repair your RV and get back on the road again, or to, as you said, come in and stay and go look and see what unit you want to buy next, right? It's a great relationship if you can get it right.
Oh yeah, right. And even as an RV shopper at times in my life, like there's nothing less appealing than just going to look at RVs that are parked on top of each other in a lot. Like maybe they'll use it as a sales tool of get the slides out, set up the campsite, right? Like, oh,
It's kind
why
of
don't you
like
stay for the weekend
test driving a
and buy this
vehicle, right?
RV, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of like test driving a vehicle. It's the same kind of concept. Go live in your RV for the
Right.
weekend, see if you actually fall in love with it.
Right. It's like it's like at a Jeep dealership when they park the Jeep on top of the rock, you know, give you a taste for like what could be, you know.
Get
So
the
yeah, you
adrenaline
know,
up. Yeah.
it's interesting. I think it's great for the community. Um, you know, connecting different parts of the industry. There's certainly a need for a nice RV park in that area.
Absolutely. And again, some interesting ways people are getting into the RV park space today. When we talk about Amazon and in RV, an RV dealer kind of coming in and looking at doing a development. So really cool. We're going to switch gears here a little bit as we start to close out the show today. Really to talk about, we've talked about the Outdoor Recreation Roundtable last week in a couple of different ways. Is a new announcement coming with the announcement of the bipartisan House Public Lands Caucus. And this is, I would say, a sign of good news for people who have been concerned about this, particularly as we've talked about kind of Doge cuts and the Beautiful Act last week with really kind of an expansion in funds being put on the table. Being that this is bipartisan in nature, there are obviously folks from both sides of the aisle who have kind of signed on to this and are advocating for the importance of protection of the public lands and making sure that even throughout all of the news that's happened with Doge, our public lands do not get sold or kind of used as a tool to help solve the deficit. Back in April, there was a bill that did fail, 4951, really to block the sale of public lands to help reduce the deficit. You know, knowing what the numbers are, the majority party being the Republicans, people actually did kind of jump ship a little bit to help save that bill from passing and kind of flip the numbers a little bit to make it a 4951 vote. So really interesting that this is kind of has become one of, if not the last kind of bipartisan issues that people have, and really looking at how do we safeguard our national parks, national heritage. Even, you know, other stories that have kind of come out, or even in public life. I don't know if people across the country have seen these billboards go up, paid for by a More Perfect Union, obviously being an advocacy group. This is Cuyahoga Valley National Park, really close to where I grew up in Ohio. Talking about, hey, you know, greetings from this local national park, now with reduced staff, right? Calling out, hey, if you're visiting one of these parks and the experience sucks, you're seeing that trash on the ground, you're seeing stuff not performing right. They want to show you where that's coming from. You know, made possible by Doge. It's a real kind of interesting mix of, like, at first glance, you read that billboard and might even just say, you know, see the greetings from whatever national park it is and think, oh, what a cool, like, little local tourism thing to kind of welcome me into the area. But if you read the whole thing and kind of read deeper, you see the kind of hidden meaning in there. And I think it's kind of an interesting use of the billboard, not only for tourism, but for advocacy to really call out what they see as importance to this issue. Matt, how did you take the announcement of this bipartisan caucus, and what do you think of the billboards going up?
It's encouraging. The bipartisan caucus, I should say specifically. I think it shows that they're, despite all the Doge stuff and you know, troubling, concerning stories about what's happening to our public lands and what that means for national parks. You know, it's still of concern, but it feels like a groundswell of you know, a bipartisan effort to counteract some of that, to have our industry's voices heard. You know, it's time will tell where it really goes, but it's encouraging. I think it's what we need to see to kind of balance out some of the more negative stories that have been coming out. You know, I feel like we've been talking about this every week, and you know, it's just good to see something from the other side.
Right. Yeah. There are a lot of changes. Obviously, the announcement of something like this just does not mean any action will happening, but it's nice to at least see people from, you want to call it both sides getting together. These are mainly in states where the outdoor rec economy is a huge part of the industry, or even where the folks from all of these sites are coming from. It's some of the most beautiful land in the country, places like, Montana or Idaho, or, wherever you see the national parks. Those are kind of the reps that are kind of coming on board to this, saying, hey, this is a really big part of my state, and we want to ensure this is set up to be accessible and here, and our public lands continue to exist for years to come. So I think well said, Matt, that it is incredibly encouraging. Really interesting to, again, continue to see these billboards. Let us know, or drop a comment if you're watching this on social media and you've seen one of these. Like I have. Would be really interested to see kind of where they're popping up around the country. I'd imagine they're all over wherever the national parks are, but yeah, kind of interesting to see how that shakes out. And then to wrap up today, we will talk about news from AAA, really talking about the Memorial Day holiday, which, believe it or not, is not that far away. We're kind of about a little bit more than a week out, which is crazy to me. I can't even believe it's the middle of May sometimes, but AAA came out with their annual travel forecasts, looking at about 45.1 million Americans are expected to travel here domestically for this Memorial Day. Obviously, in the camping industry, Memorial Day has long been touted as kind of the official kickoff of camping season. It is, people have a lot of different start dates to their properties for many reasons, but I would say just about every single RV park and campground in the country will be open for Memorial Day. There is kind of a little bit of mixed news in here, I would say, as far as people kind of looking at stays closer to home, really not trying to go as extravagant or costly with their trips, which obviously fits in extremely well with the outdoor hospitality space. Most of the time, at first glance, we're often considered to be the budget side of travel, particularly for a holiday like Memorial Day. It's great because you can go have your weekend, kids and parents are off of work, and you can kind of fit all of that in without breaking the bank, and only over the course of a couple days. So Matt, I mean, we're both obviously see the reservation data. You've got properties, just both anecdotally, how do you see this Memorial Day kind of shaping up? And what does this data from AAA kind of begin to tell us about how Memorial Day could shape up across the country?
Yeah. We're looking at a pretty strong Memorial Day at our properties. What jumped out at me here was that this is like a 20-year
project
record. This broke a record from 2005 in terms of, and so to dig into the details a little bit here, 45.1 million people are expected to travel at least 50 miles from home from Thursday, May 22nd to Monday, May 26th.
Right. So it's kind of that long 4-day weekend to kind of pancake that. A lot of people will take off the extra day of work early and then go for the whole weekend.
Right. That's 1.4 million more than last year, which is a significant number. I was surprised to hear this. I don't know. I guess not. I mean, I feel like in our industry, we compare everything back to like the COVID years. So like, I would have expected maybe that a 2022 or 2023 would have been a higher
better
number than this, but I guess maybe people were staying home more during COVID. I don't know. It's a very
you got to think this data too looks at not only people coming into the camping side, but people taking flights, people taking, car trips. This is obviously people go on cruises and hotel stays and go visit family and travel for Memorial Day. That's not connected to camping at all. So I would say, Matt, too, like people weren't necessarily traveling on planes at that time, right? Like we probably saw a bit of an increase in Memorial Day travel in the camping space, but that might have not been true in the hotel or the flight or the cruise world, which maybe is where we see a little bit of that data softening a little bit.
And really most of this big jump is with driving, road trips.
Right.
And so, I think like Memorial Day to me, I think is a pretty big like outdoor kind of holiday. It's spring. It's kind of the first opportunity to grill and celebrate and get outside and go to the lake house or maybe go to the beach, unless you're like really far up in the Northeast where like the ocean is still like 40 degrees. But so yeah, I mean, it's encouraging. I think the gas prices have something to do with that. It's been a kind of a buzz around the gas prices going down. People, hopefully that translates into more people getting out and getting in the RV and hooking up the rig. And I think it contrasts with another story that we didn't really address, but some commentary that came out of the Florida and Alabama RV conference, which was last week, was that booking windows are really short. And that's specifically in Florida and Alabama, where I think that could be due to the fact that there's a gazillion RV parks in Florida and Alabama. So there's just tons of options, right? If you have more options and more supply, you're not as incentivized to like book 3 months out. So, but I think I look at this data and I say it could even be a much bigger number, right? Because people haven't made the decision yet of what they're doing. I haven't really decided what I'm doing for Memorial Day. I think maybe I'm gonna go drive out to Massachusetts and get my new rooftop tent installed. So maybe we'll see how the weather is and do a last minute camping trip. Who knows? But yeah, it's encouraging, in a time of uncertainty. It's good to see some positive indicators. We'll take it anywhere we can get it.
Exactly. And I think, the people are much more intentional about taking the main holiday stays, right? There's a much bigger focus on Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day, in a lot of places still having to book well in advance in those booking windows and making sure that, at the most popular destinations, period, whether that's hotel, cruise, RV, whatever, you're still having to book well in advance if you want to get those spots. But most other weekends or during the week, you're right. The booking window has shortened to the point where you can kind of just get a spot and not have to plan well in advance. So I would guess most people are going to have a busy Memorial Day. We'll definitely be interested to hear from people how this holiday shakes out. But and everybody is traveling, obviously we wish you all a really, incredible holiday. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about it next week. Right as we just highlighted in the AAA data, most people will be hitting the road and getting ready for the holiday as well. So with that, Matt, I think we will wrap it up here for this week. As a reminder, make sure to check out the other segments of the show the rest of the week. I know yesterday we had a breaking bonus interview with the Airbnb CFO, Ellie Mertz, and obviously our short-term rental crew and hotel crew have the remaining shows Monday through Wednesday. But you can catch Matt and I back here next Thursday, right before Memorial Day. We'll be covering all sorts of great outdoor hospitality news stories and great info to help you have a fantastic holiday. And with that, we will see everybody next week. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Alex.
See ya.
See ya.
Want to stop juggling spreadsheets, calendars, and a dozen apps just to run your rentals? Logify makes it easy. It's an all-in-one toolkit for hosts. Build a direct booking website, automate guest messaging, and keep all your channels in sync. Running your rental business your way has never been simpler. And for Good Morning Hospitality listeners, you can get 20% off any yearly plan with code GMH20. Just check the link in the show notes to get started today.